And we are on air.
Hi guys, my name's Brianna. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some tips I learned through therapy. So let's get right into the video. So if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know that I've been interested in going back to therapy, but life has just gotten in the way time and time again. Well, I have been back in therapy for quite a few months now. I just haven't had a chance to speak about it yet, and it's been incredibly helpful for me. So I thought I would share some of the tips I've been learning, some of the skills I've been gathering to help cope with life, I suppose. So we can get right into it, and if you guys have any tips or suggestions of your own, you can comment them down below. We can just kind of come together as a community to kind of find some ways to help each other with what our struggles might be. So of course, my struggles might be different than your struggles or the next person's struggles, so everything here isn't going to help everyone who's watching. But you kind of have to figure out what works for you, and a good way to do that is to start off with some journaling. So when I first went back to therapy, I did two different kinds of journaling that were able to help me figure out what exactly I needed to focus on in terms of my daily life. The first was mood journaling. So whether it's at the end of the day or the next day, I would reflect on my day as a whole, go over the moods I experienced generally for the full day, as well as highlights of the day and lows of the day. After you do that for a week or 2 weeks or even a month, you can reflect on what types of things are affecting your overall mood. Not the little moments day to day where, maybe you stubbed your toe and then you were really frustrated for an hour. The overall, and this is why you're not doing it throughout the day, you're doing it at the end or the next day, just to reflect on your mood as a whole for the day. Using your highs and your lows, you can go back through that week or 2 weeks and really see what kind of things affect your overall mood. What is affecting your well-being and your mentality. That can help you figure out what exactly in real life is triggering any struggles with your mental health. But that's not going to help figure out any and all issues, so the next one that I did was an anxiety log, where now instead of going at the end of my day and seeing what was I feeling during the day, what was the good parts, what was the bad parts, now during the day I'm keeping a log. Every time I experienced some sort of anxiety, I would write down whether it was a thought or a symptom, what was going on, how much distress it was bringing me on a scale of 1 to 10, and what was happening right before that. Whether in the moment when I'm writing that, I think what was happening right before was linked, or whether the anxiety was just intrusive, I'm writing that down regardless. Because looking back at it after you have a full week of data, you might notice certain things triggering you that you didn't realize were triggering you. And this can also help you figure out whether the anxiety you're feeling is based on rational real-life events or whether it's impulsive internal struggles. So for me personally, since I did the mood journaling and the anxiety log, I was able to do a inventory on my life and what things were affecting me and what I really needed to tackle. Now this isn't the end all be all. Of course, it's not going to help so much with intrusive thoughts because you can't sit there logging every single thought that comes to your mind, but it can help you figure out much of your anxieties of where the problems are coming through and where to start, even if it doesn't solve everything. Of course, I had much more work to do to figure out where to start than just those two premises, but those are a really good way to help you get started, and I thought I would just share with you guys what got me started. Also, just a side note, therapy is an ongoing journey, and I'm not saying I'm done with therapy, I'm an expert, here's all I know. I'm saying it's been a long process, and the process continues and continues. But I have gathered so much so far that I wanted to share with you guys as a community, and I don't think there's any right or wrong time to do that during your journey. I'm sure I'll come back in much time from now and reevaluate, maybe taking consideration some of the feedback from you guys, or bringing new tips to the table, or talking about how some of these might have shifted for me. But this is just a good starting point for a conversation conversation, because what helps me might help someone else, or it might spark someone else to comment something that can help someone else, and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to say these are all correct or anything like that. This is just my experience. Now, those forms of journaling were the starting point, but once I took inventory of what the problems were, how am I helping myself? What tools have I collected to manage things? And one was a suggestion from my current therapist called Worry Time, and it's actually been incredibly helpful to me. Whether it's daily, weekly, whatever ends up working for you, you just take a certain amount of time that you've decided upon ahead of time. You're not sitting down for worry time not knowing how long it's going to go on for. Let's say it's 10 minutes. You set a 10-minute timer and you sit there and you let yourself worry. That can be just mentally, that can be written where you're writing down everything that pops into your head, every little worry, but you don't try to push them out. You don't try to shut them down. You don't tell your thoughts they're wrong. You sit there, and whether, like I said, mentally or written, you walk through all those worries, all those anxieties, all those feelings. You let them play out. You feel the anxiety. You gnaw over every little detail. And at the end of worry time, you go back to fighting those impulsive thoughts and trying to cope throughout the day, right? But instead of just constantly pushing down those intrusive thoughts, impulsive thoughts, and always fighting them, you give them that time, that space to come out, to let yourself feel all that anxiety. It can make it easier to push them down the rest of the time. And I found that it's been really helpful for me with my anxiety. Less so when there's something in particular that's triggering me, but it's helping with the general impulsive, intrusive thoughts. Now, of course, everybody's anxiety works a little bit differently, but for me, some of my anxieties come along with, I don't want to say hallucinations, because they're not, like, I'm not seeing anything, and I'm not necessarily feeling anything because I know it's not there, but this sense of feeling, if that makes sense. So for me, one of my big intrusive thoughts is spiders. Even when I know logically they're not there, sometimes I have this sense that they are, this feeling that they are, and then I get itchy, and like it manifests itself physically even though I know there's nothing on my body. A trick that I've discovered, and again, it doesn't always help, but it can help the wave of anxiety to pass sooner, or to help calm you during the wave, if that makes sense. So it's basically just really severe muscle contractions. So you're gonna look really dumb when you're doing it, but let's say you're trying to go to sleep and you just feel spiders everywhere. Instead of feeding into it and scratching and smacking all over your body, you lay there, you're trying to sleep, focus on every muscle in your body, and every time you feel a spider or a bug or whatever it is for you, you clench your muscles in that part of your body really, really tight, and then let go. And then if the feeling comes back, you do it again. And it might keep coming back, and it might keep coming back, but whether that helps you pass that wave or that helps you focus on something to fall asleep, it can help you. And let's say you feel it all over, then you just do that, contracting your muscles and working your way up your body, focusing on different body parts and focusing on contracting and releasing. And I had no coping skill for that kind of anxiety previously, and it has helped me immensely. So I recommend trying it out, even if it feels a little silly at first, because it does feel silly, but it can help. Another thing is that sometimes anxiety can come from that lack of support. Maybe something that triggered you, you're not feeling better, it's not going away because you haven't gotten that comfort yet. And if you have no one to give you that comfort, you can give it to yourself. You can put immense pressure on yourself, and your body thinks, like, chemically, neurologically, it's the same as if another person were to hug you with the pressure and whatnot. And that can help lower some anxiety as well. And that's, again, another one that might feel silly, but it really can help. Now, if you're somebody who has nightmares, which isn't common for me, but I do get nightmares, something my therapist recommended was, instead of just trying to go straight back to sleep when you wake up from a nightmare and, living in that anxiety and fear, when you wake up, whether you want to write it down or go through it in your brain, rewrite the dream. Whatever the bad ending was, take that same dream and rewrite it with a different, more positive ending. So it's the same nightmare, but now it has a good outcome instead of a bad one. And doing that again and again might not necessarily stop the nightmares, but it can help you feel less anxiety after you wake up from these nightmares, because you're giving your brain a happy story right afterwards. And it seems a little silly, but it really does start to help and decrease that anxiety as you have the nightmares moving forward, as well as thinking of a good story can help you fall asleep better then, instead of sitting in that anxiety and getting more upset. Another thing that's been really helping me, less so with my anxiety, but just the emotional aspect, where, sometimes I just break down and I'm crying and I'm having a really hard time, I might not be able to stop crying and calm myself down. And again, this is specific for me. You can interchange it with something that's more particular for you, but I found it can actually be really helpful to focus on saying the lyrics to a song out loud. Now, it can't be a song you know so well you could say it in your sleep, because it's not going to take any effort, any focus to do that. So maybe if there's a newer song that you've recently heard and you aren't quite sure if you know all the words yet, you're going to focus on saying all the words out loud. And again, you're going to look silly. You're going to feel ridiculous, because here you are bawling your eyes out and you're probably going to be saying some stupid pop song that you heard on the radio that doesn't fit the vibe of crying your eyes out. But focusing on those lyrics and thinking so hard gets the attention in your brain off of the crying, off of the emotions, and you will naturally start to calm down. Now, it doesn't have to be songs. That's just what has helped me. Whether you're learning something new in any format, you can use that as well. Like maybe you're really into science and your thing is going to be repeating something new that you learned in science and trying to get every detail of it correctly. But in essence, it's just something new that you might know all the details of, but don't necessarily for 100% sure do. You say it out loud and focus on that, and it'll help you calm down. Now, a lot of people recommend meditation, and I know meditation can be incredibly helpful, but for some people, and personally me, meditation can be really difficult. It's hard to sit still and focus on nothing, if that makes sense, on just clearing your mind. And I do practice meditation that way as well, but something that can be really helpful is instead of closing your eyes and just thinking, trying to think of nothing and clearing your mind, or even focusing on a mantra, for me it's still difficult. So something else you can do is, if you're into crystals or anything that has some sort of visual, you can focus on that. Now for me, I like to pick out crystals that have any kind of shine, reflectiveness, color changing property, so that no matter how long I'm staring at this crystal and moving it around and focusing, and I'm never gonna understand and memorize all of it because it's changing. So it gives me a way to focus and calm myself and be mindful without having to focus on my anxieties, if that makes sense. Because those impulsive thoughts, they're coming in your mind even when you're trying to clear your mind, and that can make it more frustrating and harder to focus. So that's another way you can be mindful without having to put so much on yourself. And the last thing I really recommend is just trying to take your struggles and use them to your advantage. Now when I say this, I'm not trying to glorify any issue. Everyone has their struggles. When it comes to mental health disorders, they're called disorders for a reason. But that doesn't mean you can't try to twist them to use them to your benefit, if that makes sense. So for me personally, one of my biggest struggles is my OCD. But that's also the one I've been learning and dealing with and figuring out how to cope with for the longest. So I have the most amount of coping skills for it. I have the best handle on it, and it provides the least overall negative impact on my life, as I've learned to compartmentalize and handle the day-to-day distress it gives me. So that being said, I can sometimes use my OCD as a way to help me with other struggles. For example, within OCD, list making is a huge thing. I do it impulsively, but also completing lists gives me this really good feeling. It relieves so much anxiety, and I don't really know how to explain the feeling to anyone who doesn't experience it. But that means that when I have certain goals that I need to meet for other issues that I'm struggling with, and again, this is such a hard thing to explain without going into detail, but I don't want to go into detail about my personal struggles on here. This is more just general knowledge I'm trying to give people to help each other out. But I can use my yearning to check things off and complete the goals and get to that good feeling to help me complete my goals for my other struggles and issues that I don't have as good as a handle on. So the anxiety and the drive that one gives me to complete lists and check off goals and stuff, I use that and push it to help me figure out and complete the goals to figure out how to manage my other issues. So any struggles of yours that you have a good skill set, a good management system for, you can cope with really well, evaluate those and see if there's anything you can do to use those to your benefit to learn how to get your other struggles under wraps and in control. Oh, and one last thing I forgot that ties into the OCD for me is I have super incredibly specific to-do lists. So instead of saying one bullet point, clean the bathroom, it'll be way more specific than that. So even if I don't have time to clean the whole bathroom, I'm still crossing things off my list. And then it feeds into that good feeling and keeps the ball rolling of momentum and motivation rather than feeling demotivated because I didn't get to complete that task. So when I clean the bathroom, it'll say wipe down the sink, wipe down the toilet, clean the floors, organize my makeup. It'll be really specific, so every time I do a task, even if it's something that only takes a minute or two, I can cross something off my list and it feeds me, makes me feel more motivated, and I can continue. And if my lists are always so long that I never complete them, over time, and again, I understand how hard this is because I remember when I was first working on my OCD, I couldn't handle it. But over time, you train your body to be used to it, and that part of the anxiety starts to wither away, and now you can use list making to your advantage. Instead of it being one list, to-do list, and you have to finish it or you're going to be so anxious, it's an ongoing list forever. And so you feel the success of constantly ticking off tasks, but you don't have to complete the whole list because you know that those tasks always are going to continue for the next list for things to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So for me, there's never one to-do list, here's my list for today. It's always really detailed and extensive of anything I might have to do. So if I don't get things done, well, at least some things were done. There's always at least one task completed because of how specific they are, that there's no way in a full day I couldn't even do one thing, even if it's as easy as brush my teeth, you know? And for that kind of thing, I really do love the app Finch that I've been using. I think I've spoken about it on here once before, but it's incredibly helpful. You can put everything you might possibly have to do in there, as specific or non-specific as you want to be, and you can move goals to different days as you go on throughout the day. So you complete everything you can complete, and if you can't complete it, instead of it sitting there on an unfinished list, it can move to the next day. As well, it also gives you a really good feeling because when you complete tasks on the app, it gives you coins or rainbow stones so you can buy little outfits for your bird and stuff. I'm not explaining this very well because I've spoken about it in another video already, so I hope it makes sense, but it's really helpful. I really recommend you check it out. My little bird is called Peaches, and they're absolutely adorable, and I love collecting all the coins and stuff so I can dress them. So even though I know I have to do these goals regardless of the app or not, it gives a good feeling and a little bit more motivation to get them done. Yeah, that's pretty much it for my list. I hope that these can be helpful for you as they've been really helpful for me. Of course, I still have a long ways to go though, and really figuring everything out and really having full control and management of my struggles, but it's an ongoing journey and I'm happy to be on this journey, and I hope it's speaking about it a little bit can help you guys out, and we can just feel stronger and connected. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.